Erin Micklow. Since the start of her social media career, Erin has been laughed at, critiqued, and had accusations thrown at her from every direction. These accusations have ranged from being deemed a poser to being the perpetuator of serious crimes. If you ask Erin, this is nothing more than hating and bullying, but is there any validity to what her critics have to say? How could a woman in the punk scene who got her start doing outfit styling and interviewing become such a polarizing figure in what was realistically not a huge amount of time? In this video I'm going to be examining Erin's online reputation as well as a series of more notable events that have occurred throughout her career as a quote-unquote punk influencer. Before we begin, I'd like to point out the vast majority of claims against Erin online are unsubstantiated and come from hearsay within the LA scene, and while I will be discussing them in this video, please take them with a grain of salt. Also, unless I state otherwise throughout the course of this video, I am not giving my personal opinion on this woman. I'm simply presenting you with information and I'm going to try and remain as objective as possible. I find her online presence to be quite fascinating and interesting to study. As I'm sure you're probably already aware if you've clicked on this video, she's quite controversial within her niche. Before we begin, hi, so sorry for disappearing. If you're not in alternative spaces yourself online, there's a pretty good chance you don't even know who this woman is. There's not a whole lot of information available on her background prior to her sharing her life online. She was born in 1988 in Florida and moved to LA in 2007, getting her industry start as a stylist before moving on to becoming a dating coach and later a content creator. According to her current IMDb page, Erin Micklow is an American model, SAG-AFTRA actress, I don't know what that means, wardrobe stylist and host, best known for her popular weekly show on YouTube, Last Rockers TV, where she travels the world covering punk rock festivals and giving punk rock bands a voice to tell their stories and promote their music and projects. She's been active on social media for about a decade, with nearly 70,000 subscribers on YouTube, around 160k on Instagram, and just shy of 250,000 on TikTok. Her content initially consisted of mostly outfit styling, gig footage, and her YouTube show Last Rockers TV, which is her interviewing bands at various punk festivals like Rebellion in the UK and Punk Rock Bowling in the US. In terms of her acting work, Erin has had a small string of minor roles in various films and TV shows since 2011, with her IMDb biography claiming some roles she's participated in were written for her specifically. She's also had some other ventures. She's had various accounts on more exclusive sites behind a paywall over the past few years, as well as running a glamping Airbnb business in Hollywood, which got shut down by the Los Angeles City Council a couple of months ago. She's an ambassador for brands like Shein, and got her start modelling doing pin-up work before transitioning into a more punk aesthetic, which she has stated in interviews felt more authentic to her true self, as she used to hang out in punk spaces and go to shows when she still lived in Florida, getting into the genre through friends as a teenager. This punk aesthetic is kind of the main talking point surrounding Erin and has been since the growth of her social media platforms, being criticised and scrutinised by pretty much anyone who has any kind of interest in the subculture at all. Like, for real, people act like this woman murdered their entire family, burned down their house, and pissed on their dog, okay? Like, she's really not well liked. There have been change.org petitions to ban her from the scene, whatever that means. She's become a huge meme, and she receives so much online hate that you'd wonder why she even bothers, honestly. I mean, fair play to her for having thick skin, I guess, like credit where credit's due. A huge criticism in terms of Erin's fashion choices is how polished and stylized everything looks. While there is a DIY element to her outfits, and honestly a lot of the stuff she does with her clothes does look really cool, there is something that arguably comes off as inauthentic about her interest in the subculture. Erin's Liberty spiked hair has become her trademark in her rise to online notoriety, with content consumers noting it was never styled that way for events that weren't shows or festivals, as Erin frequently attends low-key red carpet events with a much more normal aesthetic. Other observations while criticising Erin have included her lack of tattoos or face piercings, and the fact her hair has never been dyed. I semi-feel the need to defend her here. I don't think having body modifications is an essential part of being alternative. And as a model and actress, especially when Erin would have gotten her start in those areas, you were kind of expected to be a blank canvas to work with. Erin has been accused for years of co-opting a punk look to fit a specific niche to brand herself in the world of acting and modelling, which to be fair seems to be her end goal and something that she comes off as a lot more passionate about than content creation. Like I said, Erin's interest in punk generally has been criticised for a lack of real interest, and it's been widely circulated online she neglects to attend shows around LA unless it can generate content for her or unless she can be let in free of charge. Her YouTube show, Last Rockers TV, has also received a lot of criticism online due to accusations of poor interviewing skills and a general lack of engagement with and knowledge of the band she hosts. The format of Last Rockers TV consists of interviews with various notable bands such as Los Fastidios, Lambrini Girls and Cocksparrer, as well as figureheads in the scene like Steve Ignorant, frequently taking place backstage at festivals with interview questions being spliced up alongside footage of the band's sets. Erin takes pride in filming, editing, and hosting the show all herself, and it has been a staple of her YouTube channel since very early on in her social media career. And I find it a bit strange that arguably the most interesting aspect of her online presence is the one that receives the least engagement. She has a significantly smaller following on YouTube than her other platforms. Furthermore, there are a lot of claims online from those who have met her in person at shows and festivals deeming her to be snobby and rude, as well as unsubstantiated claims she is from a very wealthy family who fund her lifestyle. Erin has also faced a lot of criticism due to the brands she chooses to work with, and where she chooses to cash in on things, most notably Dollskill, who she continued to support despite their decision to speak out in support of police during the George Floyd protests in 2020. Allegedly, she will also rep bands' merch or interview them if she receives payment. I did also see somewhere that she was supposedly charging people for video calls during COVID, but I couldn't verify this. While these criticisms are all fair, the biggest one by far does seem to be her fashion choices, and ultimately, that's really not that important. And if that's all people were tearing her down for, I would really think they had too much time on their hands. Just to clarify, by that I mean purely in terms of her aesthetics and not the brands she chooses to work with. I really don't think there's any excuse to be supporting Dollskill. This being said, Erin simply existing online isn't what would make her quite so controversial over the years, as her name has become associated with a few more notable incidents. Erin's first large controversy was her banning from the punk rock bowling music festival in Las Vegas in 2018. Erin uploaded a video to her YouTube channel alleging the reason for this ban was because of her previous romantic relationship with the organizer of the festival, Sean Stern, which had ended 10 years prior. Erin states in the video that while she had no ill feelings towards the relationship and, at the time of the video's upload, was happily married, Sean clearly has a quote, chip on his shoulder, and when he realised she had been granted media credentials to interview bands at the festival against his wishes, made up a lie that she had been filming backstage consistently after being repeatedly asked not to, and therefore kicked out and barred from any events associated with the festival. It should be noted Erin had been at each iteration of punk rock bowling for 7 years prior to this sudden ban, which she says herself in the video. One thing I am gonna say in defense of Erin here is that she alleges she was in her 20s and this man was in his 50s when this relationship took place, and she feels like she was taken advantage of. If that's true, I am sorry that happened to her and I do feel for her. This being said, what are the chances she was barred from an event purely because someone was petty about a relationship from over a decade ago, especially if there had been no issues with her attendance at the festival prior to this particular year? While Punk Rock Bowling never released an official statement or anything on their social media pages, there were a lot of, again, unsubstantiated claims online from people who either supposedly worked the festival or attended it that year, claiming Erin was indeed continuously going backstage despite being told she could not, and even conducting interviews while well aware she was not permitted to be in those areas. As well as this, from what Erin stated in the video herself, it sounds like Sean Stern initially denied her media credentials for the festival, so she managed to get them from someone else. If this was the case, it's understandable he wouldn't be happy about her using the festival for content. This incident seemed to solidify to a lot of people in the subculture that Erin was only interested in attending events in order to exploit content from them and grow her online presence. The following year, in 2019, Erin would become the subject of a much more serious controversy online, when there were allegations thrown against her that she had someone in the past. This is obviously a very serious allegation to make towards someone and should be treated as such, but a lot of the information regarding it seems to have completely disappeared from the internet, including the initial nature of the allegations. The video Erin put up on Facebook as a response to all these allegations is still up, where she refers to the allegations as quote drama and bullshit, and states she didn't want to make a statement at all, but that she's still friends with both of the men she was accused of assaulting, and that they can confirm that no such incidents ever happened. She is also very quick to blame a, quote, jealous girl with nothing better to do. I find it so strange she's filming something this sensitive in such a crowded place. Shortly after this video, Erin posted a series of screenshots revealing the identity of the supposedly jealous girl, as well as text messages from the two male friends in question, who confirm in the text messages that no such incidents took place. I do feel like there was a lot more to this story, as I remember seeing more discourse around it in 2019, but I could very well be misremembering, and there's very little information relating to the situation online at all now. Like I said, this is a very serious subject, and shame on the person who is at fault, whether that be Erin or whether it be the person who made it up if it's not true. Erin's most recent controversy definitely became her biggest, as more and more layers of the situation were unfolded and more people gave accounts and perspectives online. The aftermath would also see a departure in the kind of content Erin would post, as this seemed to kill any shreds of credibility she had left within the punk scene. On April 27th, 2024, Mexican punk band R.P.C'S were playing a show at the Moroccan Lounge in Los Angeles. Support on the night was offered by bands Total Chaos, Piata Protest, and Still Pist. Erin Micklow and her boyfriend were in attendance. The following day, Erin Micklow uploaded a video to her social media platforms looking very worse for wear indeed, in which she details the online bullying she has been receiving for years had culminated in her getting jumped at the show the previous night. She goes on to say that while this was not the first time she had been attacked in public, it has been the worst incident, and begs for the bullying to stop, stating that punk is supposed to be a community. Erin alleges that while in the women's bathroom at the venue, the only place her boyfriend could not be with her, there was a woman in the bathroom who was so intoxicated she could barely stand. This woman supposedly proceeded to get up in Erin's face and produces some band stickers with Erin's face on them with a slogan that implied she's a poser, before stuffing them down Erin's cleavage and throwing a drink in her face, before proceeding to start beating on her. Note that this kind of contradicts Erin's previous claim that the woman could barely stand, but anyways, Erin states she's not an aggressive person and did not fight back, but instead started calling for her boyfriend and security to help her. Security did not show up, and when Erin's boyfriend appeared to help her, a group of men also showed up and attacked both Erin and her boyfriend. While a lot of people did make fun of Erin for getting attacked in the days that followed, this is probably the time where the internet as a whole was the most sympathetic to her, agreeing that this was too far and she did not deserve to be attacked. Erin would make more posts on Instagram over the following days, identifying the attackers as the band Still Pist and one of their girlfriends who went by Randy Retrograde. Erin was determined to establish the narrative that this attack was premeditated. Following the identification of the attackers, Still Pist naturally wanted to defend themselves. The stickers were not Still Pist merch, but rather made by another California band called Dogface Bastards. Randy's boyfriend Jesse, the band's bassist, alleges that what actually happened was, while Randy showed Erin the sticker and was laughing about it, this caused Erin to flip out and attack Randy first. When Jesse went to check on the commotion, he immediately saw Erin's boyfriend punching Randy in the face, which prompted him to get involved himself. The band page confirmed on Instagram that this was a one-on-one fight between Jesse and Erin's boyfriend, and not an attack by a large group of men, with the other three members of the band either being outside the venue or enjoying the show. Jesse has also alleged that Erin and her boyfriend started calling the band slurs upon being ejected from the venue. Randy verified this in a comment posted to Erin's Instagram, criticising Erin for using the situation for sympathy and pointing out some contradictions in her story. There was also a picture of Randy posted by Still Pist with obvious ring marks on her cheek from where Erin's boyfriend had punched her, despite Erin claiming he had only interfered to get her away from the fight and did not attack Randy. The tide turned against Erin massively following the holes poked in her story, and the backlash was pretty severe. Erin had made attempts to defend her boyfriend and was adamant her side of the story was the truth. But to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't quite add up, and it's quite murky as to what actually did go down that night. It really put any shred of credibility Erin had left to the punk scene into question as a whole. Following this incident, Erin's social media slowly but surely began to undergo a shift in her aesthetics as well as what kind of content she would post. She made an announcement she would not be attending Rebellion 2024 due to the festival's refusal to provide her with her own security, instead opting to go on an ayahuasca retreat in Guatemala to try and overcome the trauma of the attack. To clarify, she has continued to double down that her story regarding the events of that night is true. Erin responded to commentary about this initially by saying she could no longer upkeep her Liberty spikes due to the strain on her hair, and they were causing it to thin and fall out, which is honestly valid. I used to have one of those scene kid mullets and my hair actually started falling out from all of the backcombing I was doing to it. However, her content following this would continue to veer in a vastly more different direction, almost as though she had become an LA socialite. The last Rockers TV interviews dried up, the last of which was an interview with Zach Wilde posted 11 months ago. Her gig footage began to veer vastly outside of punk shows. She began opting for a much more typical influencer style and look, and she began uploading much more day in the life and event review reels, many of which are based around her travels. Following the announcement that her Airbnb was being shut down, she announced she was going to pursue content creation full time, something she had always made quite clear was a side hustle while the Airbnb was her main focus. In response to an Instagram comment stating that the user missed her show and asking why her content had changed, Erin had this to say. Unfortunately, I retired my show last year after that assault where I was jumped in a bathroom. I miss doing my show sometimes, but this chapter has come to completion after last year's assault. It's wild to me how I tolerated people putting hands on me or throwing things at me in the punk scene while I was working to cover the bands and festivals or just having fun attending. How many times I never spoke out about it because every time I did I was punished or called a liar, or how many people normalised the violence in that scene. Learning to love and respect myself more, that's why I've mostly stepped away from all of that to make space to invite new things in that align with my core values and the kinds of people I want to surround myself with. But you can still watch hundreds of my videos at Erin Micklow on YouTube from over a decade of covering concerts and festivals. Cheeky little self-promo at the end there, Erin. Ultimately, I do think Erin's decision to evolve her content and step away from the punk scene was probably for the best. Erin claims to have been introduced to punk as a teenager through friends and had a genuine passion and interest in it prior to her social media presence. And while I do think she must be more interested in punk than people online would make out to have been covering it for 10 years and going to all these festivals and shows, I do think there is something about her presence in the subculture that comes across as disingenuous. There is a lot of validity to her criticisms, but at the same time, if she does love the scene as much as she makes out, I think it is quite sad that people had it out for her so much. We're the ones observing the content she posts at the end of the day, and I do think it's fair to say that a lot of her interest in the subculture does not come across as genuine. Real quick, I'm just editing this and I realised I never expanded on this point properly, even though I really should have. I think the main thing that would make Erin's disinterest in the subculture apparent is the fact that she seems to be much more interested in the fashion aspects of the subculture rather than the music or politics. Punk as a whole, as a movement, is political. I know there's been a lot of discourse online in the last few years trying to argue that it's not, but it is. Erin, from what I've seen at least, has never used her platform to advocate for anything. This also ties into the brands she chooses to work with. I mentioned earlier in the video she's worked with Dolls Kill a lot, and when people even called her out for working with Dolls Kill, she left like a really self-victimizing comment being like, it's really unfair for my audience to demand a statement. Being interested in the fashion aspect of the subculture is fine, but it's arguably less important than the music or politics. Furthermore, just going back to what I said earlier about her seeming not that interested or kind of misinformed about the bands she interviews on Last Rockers TV, this doesn't happen every single interview, but there's definitely times where you notice it. Being said as well, I'm pretty sure a large portion of your audience just being there to criticize every move you make would also dampen your feelings towards it. This being said, Erin is better off away from that constant scrutiny, and the scene is better off not having her presence to be bothered by. Works out well for everyone. It'll be interesting to see if she manages to carve out a new niche and audience for herself in the world of social media, or if the deconstruction of her punk rock brand will lead her to fade into obscurity. Only time will tell. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave me a comment letting me know what you think about this situation, and be sure to drop a like as well because it really does help out with the algorithm. Pretty much everyone I know within my own scenes has a very strong opinion of Erin Micklow, and it's always either like super positive or super negative, nowhere in between. I haven't uploaded in quite some time, and while I was gone I hit 2,500 subscribers. Thank you so much. I'm just so thankful. I'm sorry for being gone for so long. I moved cities and then I needed surgery and life stuff was just crazy, and I'm really hoping to upload more consistently until the end of the year because this has become one of my favourite hobbies, genuinely. Thank you so much for watching and I'll catch you in another video. Take care. Bye!